Sneakers and Cleats, the podcast.
To subscribe to the YouTube channel, News 4 and Fox SA. If you're so inclined, download, rate, review the podcast. Helps us out a lot. Before we get to anything, Chuck, I want to get to trivia, which I did not make very hard for you today. This shouldn't be too difficult. I knew that
not hard is also a relative term. Yes.
All right. Trivia is Gregg Popovich is the all-time wins leader in NBA history, but he's the third all-time in playoff wins. Who are the two coaches who have more playoff wins than Gregg Popovich?
Phil Jackson.
Ding, ding, ding. He's number one with 229 playoff wins, which is just an astounding amount.
Jerry Sloan?
Incorrect. You can get it though if you keep thinking about it. You can get it. I'll give you this.
I didn't come here to think.
So this. Neither did I, but here we are. The coach above that is second has one more playoff win than Gregg Popovich. He has 171. Gregg Popovich has 170.
Red Auerbach?
Now think more recently because
they didn't have as many.
Rounds of the playoffs back then.
Both the Lakers and the Heat.
Huh?
Both the Lakers and the Heat.
He did coach both of those teams.
Spoelstra? Oh,
no, Lakers and Heat.
Sorry.
There you go.
Okay.
Pat Riley has 171. Gregg Popovich 170. You know what I didn't know is that Erik Spoelstra is actually fifth in all-time playoff wins, which is kind of crazy because he's only been coaching the Heat since 07, 08. Whatever,
always there.
Whenever that year was that Pat Riley stepped down. So he's always there. So
Pat Riley, what a great man.
Dude, Pat Riley is probably my favorite coach of all time. I'm a Heat fan, so that makes sense. But I love Pat Riley.
I have one great short Pat Riley story. In the height of Pat Riley being Pat Riley, the good-looking dude with the cool hair, wins a bunch of ball games. I had an intern with me at shoot-around, and he'd never interviewed anybody. And it's like, you want to interview Pat Riley? And the kid was like, yes. And so I, introduced myself to Pat Riley, who was walking off the court, and he gave this kid the best interview as if he was talking to Morley Safer. And it was just a really nice touch of humanity when you don't think that somebody of that ilk is ever going to show that kind of kindness to a budding journalist. And I don't know, I was just really, really, really impressed, and it made a very strong impression on me in terms of Pat Riley.
Did the kid ask good questions?
Yes, he did, but he was shaking the whole time and he was doing this.
I mean, if I interviewed Pat Riley now, and I've been in the industry for a few years now, I would still be shaking. I'd be like, hello.
So, Pat Riley was drafted by the Dallas Cowboys.
I did know that, actually. You don't really think about it very often.
The story
it's deep in the annals of my brain.
Right. The story that he tells, though, is that the Cowboys wanted him to play cornerback, and he wanted to play quarterback. So he said, no, I'm going to stick with basketball.
I mean, fair enough.
Yes.
It's also crazy to think that him and Phil Jackson, both two NBA players that turned out to be the greatest NBA coaches of all time besides Gregg Popovich, obviously. Let's get to some Gregg Popovich stuff. So Monday, I'll just lay this out before we get out to any discussion about it or anything like that. So on Monday, we heard from Spurs coach Gregg Popovich for the first time since he suffered the milestroke back in early November. I believe it was November 2nd, just before the Minnesota Timberwolves game over at the Frostbank Center. Luckily, he was surrounded by a lot of medical personnel there. To this point, we've only heard from the organization and from the players and from Mitch Johnson about Pop, because Pop has not been available to be asked about Pop. This is the statement. Luis just threw it up for us. It says, in part, this has certainly been an unexpected 6 weeks for my family and me as we work together on my recovery. I want to take a moment to share that the outpouring of support we've received during this time has been truly overwhelming in the best possible way. He went on to say, no one is more excited to see me return to the bench than the talented individuals who have been leading my rehabilitation process. They've quickly learned that I'm less than coachable. A little bit of Coach Pop humor there as he likes to fit in. So then on Tuesday, obviously, some of the players during their media availability were asked about Coach Pop in the statement. So this is what Stephon Castle, Jeremy Shohan had to say.
Yeah, no, it's again, it gives hope. Again, knowing Pop, he's working hard. He's definitely watching the games. Probably trying to stay calm, but not always. But again, it's good to see that. You know, it makes you smile, it makes you warm. So you know, I hope everything's going well, and you know, he's working his ass off to get back on that bench.
We've already, you know, encouraged Pop, you know, throughout this whole process. So, I mean, that wasn't like a new statement to us. I mean, it was new to the public, obviously, but you know, I mean, he's been giving us word. You know, I mean, just giving him encouragement, you know, on his return. So, I mean, I don't know what the team's reaction to it was, but you know, I'm happy that, you know, he's, you know, able to, you know, come out with a statement like that for the public.
A little bit of mixed messaging from them, just because Jeremy said obviously it's encouraging, and then Stefan saying it wasn't encouraging for us. We knew that because we've been talking to him for a little while. Two things that really weren't addressed in the statement: when is he going to come back, and how he's doing. But besides that, he does allude to him returning to the bench. In what capacity? We don't know any specifics to it, but he does say, "I'm looking forward to a return to the bench."
He does say that, and I hope this is, I think, what we said at the very early stages of this, is that you hope physically he recovers and he's back to being the same old Pop that everybody remembers, right? And there's no physical challenges that he has to still meet. So grateful that he's doing better. That's my understanding that he is. My understanding, though, to this point, and everything I've gotten is third hand, so take it with an eye on assault, but you know, this is obviously a very challenging physical situation, and it would be a miracle if he came back this year at all.
I mean, I thought that when we kind of discussed the last statement that the Spurs released was like, I think it was understood by everybody in that article by Mike Finger as well, that he's not going to come back before the new year. And I think obviously that's pretty much cemented now. He's probably not going to come back until the new year happens. I would be surprised if he doesn't come back this year, though. I mean, when you hear mild stroke, obviously we don't know all the specifics and what his health dictates, but seeing what Pop has gone through and seeing who Pop has shown us that he is for the last 30 some odd years, I would be surprised if he doesn't want to get back on the bench as soon as possible. And he does not actually attain that goal.
Well, that would shock me too, right? I mean, knowing who he is and how much he loves basketball and how much he loves coaching this team and this organization that, quite frankly, he's built. So, yes, all that would shock me too. Having said that, he's having to deal with stroke-related issues. And so the most important thing is to get back physically as strong as possible and at some point so that you can take on the challenges that demand and what an NBA coach has to go through.
Yeah,
so,
and he's a 75-year-old man who's recovering from what they're calling a mild stroke. I mean, a stroke is a stroke, so
right.
It's still not good for a 75-year-old man to suffer that. However, I do take it as a semi-encouraging sign. One, that he's releasing the statement. Two, Pop is still using the same old Pop humor. And three, that he's very clearly still in communication with all of the players, all of the coaches, still has his finger
that is fact.
That still has his finger on the pulse of what's going on inside the organization, still going on with his team day to day. I would be surprised if, when all of this is over, that we hear that Coach Pop did not talk to Mitch Johnson every day, or at least every other day, because of how much he is coaching not only the players, but is coaching Mitch Johnson and is coaching all of the coaches on his staff. So I think that it is encouraging for me as someone who covers the Spurs, and I think it should be encouraging to Spurs fans that he is still in that constant communication with the players and the coaches.
Yes, I agree. That is a positive, and we're grateful that that's exactly what's going on. But to me, it's in this press release, I don't want to infer anything from what isn't there. And you already pointed out what isn't there, right? How's he doing physically, and when is he coming back? Neither one of those things was there, so I don't want to read the tea leaves too far ahead. We're just hoping that Pop gets better and, is able to make that decision to come back or not to come back, and he's perfectly physically fine and able to make that decision according to his will.
Right, and I mean, without reading between the lines and just taking the words that we've heard and seen over the last 2 months at face value, he is going to come back. We don't know when he's going to come back, but he does allude to a return to the bench, and he has said in the past that this young team last year, the year before that, this year has reinvigorated his will and want to coach. So like I said, I'd be surprised if he didn't return sooner rather than later. If he is out all year because his health does not allow him to come back, I think everyone would be okay with that because it's his health first.
100%.
But I would be surprised if he does not.
It should be the least, and I think it is, of Spurs fans' worries at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I guess I don't know. Sometimes the way the Spurs do their media and like display and divulge information bugs me, but I mean that's par for the course. We hadn't heard anything about Pop in what feels like forever, and it was right around Thanksgiving from what I remember. But we hadn't heard anything, and then out of nowhere, all right, here's a statement from Pop. You know, we don't get any of that, how the sausage is made, or we don't get any of that constant information. And you've dealt with that for years.
Yes. So. I mean, you know, I'm not going to tell them how to run their business. They're perfectly capable of figuring that stuff out on their own. But yes, at times the lack of transparency creates a spitballing situation where you're trying to figure things out, or you're having to get information second and third hand and then at least formulate an opinion based on what you're hearing so that you don't accidentally take people into a narrative stream that doesn't necessarily exist.
Right. So, I mean, I think we can end the Pop part of this conversation saying we hope he gets better, hope he is back on the court sooner rather than later, and even if he doesn't come back to the court, as long as he lives a successful, happy, and healthy latter part of his life, I think it'll all be successful in that.
Amen.
So let's go to the trade organization, period, end of sentence. The trade season here in the NBA is kind of at a boiling point, or I guess if we were speaking in literature, it'd be rising action at this point because it's starting to heat up. Bleacher Report is linking a lot of names to the Spurs, linking a lot of names to everybody. So, I mean, thank you for them to do that because now we have something to talk about. But still, trade season is interesting until you get to like the trade deadline day and nothing happens. I do think that some of the names that have been thrown around are a little interesting. Bleacher Report released an article, I think it was on Tuesday or Monday. LaMelo Ball, the point guard for the Hornets, he's 23 years old. He's been linked to the Spurs, and this isn't the first time he's been linked to the Spurs. He's actually been linked in the previous offseason as well. Zach LaVine obviously has been in trade rumors for what feels like 3 years now, but he's 29 years old. He signed through 2027. Collin Sexton, the point guard for the Utah Jazz, he's 26 years old. He's only signed through the 26th season. But those three names, and it's all point guards, shooting guards. I don't know if that's what they need. I mean, we've discussed in the past that they need a shooter and they need a four. They need a stretch four probably. I don't know if you're going to trade for a point guard or a shooting guard when you have right now you have Chris Paul, who in theory could be traded. I would be floored if he was. If Chris Paul got traded this season because he's on an expiring contract and he's a piece that you could put in for a bigger piece, I would be floored if he was traded. I would more expect Harrison Barnes to be traded, if anybody. But all these three names just don't move the needle for me on what the Spurs need, especially when it comes to organizationally what their timeline looks like for success.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like they need something, right? And then you think, well, do they need something or do they just need to get healthy, right? And then get a chance to have all your pieces available and then see how those pieces react based on, you know, the other four guys are on the floor with them at the same time. I really don't know at this point because when they were banged up a month ago, you know.
No Jeremy, no Devin.
Yeah. Right. It looked like, first of all, it looked like basketball, right? Ball was moving, guys were making the right plays, everything was happening, and it looked, you know, they won 5 out of 6. It looked like things were moving in the right direction. Then guys were coming back, and again, it's the factor of having to figure out, okay, now how do we integrate these guys back into what is going on and not miss a beat? Well, It hasn't quite looked the same since they've gotten healthier, but maybe that's just a product of they just need more time together on the floor.
Yeah, Steph Castle actually talked about that in that same interview. Don actually asked him a question. You guys, it seems like people keep getting shuffled in and out of the lineup because of their injuries. Trey Jones has been out for a while. Keldon Johnson out right now. Zach Collins has been in and out. I think there's more players on the roster right now who have missed time than have not missed time. Chris Paul somehow has not missed any time as a 39-year-old man. And same with
That's
Harrison.
why he's had the career that
Yes,
he's had.
same
too,
with
right?
same with Harrison Barnes. But still, I mean, you think about all the players and all the shuffling of lineups and all the players who've gone in and out. Devin Vassell hasn't started a game yet, and he's their second. Actually, I think he's the highest paid player on the team right now. He's coming off the bench just to try and prevent any further injury to that foot or to his knee or whatever. So when you have players going in and out of the lineup like that, you almost don't know what the finished product looks like. So how do you know what you need to trade for if you don't see the finished product and what you actually have on the court?
It's valid, and I think the organization has said all along, right? This roster is going to dictate what moves we make, right? They want to be able to see those same kind of things too. So, they're not in a horrible spot right now in terms of where they are in the standings, although I would argue that they got to start winning more of these games at home because the back half of the schedule is going to be nothing but road games.
Well, it does feel like they're treading water right now. It feels like, they'll win 2 in a row and then they'll lose 3 in a row and then they'll win 3 in a row. It's kind of like those basketball being a game of runs is the old adage, and it feels like right now their season is a game of runs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if making a huge move this season is what they want to do. Actually, I would err on the side of saying that they don't want to make a huge move this season because they want to see where this team in this young roster gets them without making a huge move. If they're going to trade for a LaMelo Ball, what do you do with Trey? I mean, you have to get rid of Trey Jones at that point, and Chris Paul's no longer starting, so there goes his attitude right out the window probably. He came here to start and to play, like as we talked about a couple weeks ago. So if you trade for a LaMelo Ball, who is 5 years, $204 million contract, signed through 2029, you're committing to LaMelo Ball for the next 5 years to build with Victor Wembanyama. Do you want that this year, or do you want to try and do that in the offseason? It's almost like timing. What is your timeline? And I don't think that they know exactly what the timeline is yet either. So you can't make a huge commitment to one of these guys without knowing exactly what your timeline is.
I'm with you on that. I mean, and especially with all the draft capital that we know that they possess in these next few years. I mean, it seems kind of silly that you would leap or do something right now when you're talking about a 500 team, right? If it starts to look like they're making this move to become one of those top 4 or 5 teams in the West, then maybe these things seem to make a little bit more sense. But, again, they're not that far away from being one of those top 4 or 5 teams in terms of wins and losses.
Before we get into the Jimmy Butler stuff, Bob?
Joseph had a comment. He said he always wanted the Spurs to trade for Jordan Poole, and he says keep Malachi. He's a hidden gem.
I like Malachi a lot. I mean, he looks like a good backup point guard. I don't know if he's ever going to be a superstar, but Jordan Poole, really? Jordan Poole, the guy who hold on. Jordan Poole, who got shuffled out of Golden State and has sucked for the Wizards. We're gonna talk about Jordan Poole.
Well,
that's who we want on this team.
You can always call the Wizards he
wasn't good.
Vast wasteland.
He wasn't good
NBA.
for Golden State either.
God, the Wizards, how is it that they just can't get out of the gutter? I mean,
Dude,
you look
they
up
suck.
and they're so bad. Last I checked, they're sitting at 3 wins still.
They might be. You remember the process 76ers who set the all-time or all-time loss record? They might rival that. The Wizards might be the worst team I've ever seen in my life.
Like the Washington. What was the team that used to play the Globetrotters in Washington? The Nationals?
Yeah,
was it?
The Generals.
The Generals.
Generals. There you go. What?
I asked AI. It said Jordan Poole is considered a capable scorer.
Okay,
on a bad team.
From AI's ear
The
to
high
God's
potential.
ear.
From Google AI to your ears. They were also linked today. ESPN.
Not paying attention.
No, he's not. Chuck actually brought water, so I don't.
You don't have to hear me slurping.
No, I don't have to mute his mic when you hear air going through the straw. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, is this what is it? ASMR? Is that what audio sensory? Is that the TikTok thing now?
That's what the kids do.
I mean, you're the digital guy. I ask you digital questions here.
I'm an old man. Today's my birthday, by the way.
Oh, is it really?
Is it actually?
Bob,
Happy birthday, Bob.
birthday.
We'll sing Bob happy birthday at the end of this. Hopefully another Browns
forgot the
loss
words.
for your birthday.
That's what I'm looking for.
I know. That's what I'm saying. That's why they're starting DTR now. Before we get, so everybody, happy birthday to Bob.
Happy birthday, Bob.
Tom Guerrero. Give him a happy birthday shout out in the
house,
chat.
too.
I know. I figured he was. Anyway, so ESPN today said that the Spurs are also a dark horse trade candidate for Jimmy Butler. This is the one I don't get because Jimmy's 34 36 years old. The trade that they suggested, just for clarity, is Harrison Barnes, Malachi Branham, Keldon Johnson, a 2025 first-round pick, not the Atlanta pick or the San Antonio pick probably, but more like the Charlotte top 14 protected or the Chicago top 10 protected. So 1 first-round pick, and you have 17 or whatever the number is, and 3 players that you don't really know are going to be part of your future anyway. I see the trade. I don't get Jimmy Butler because Jimmy Butler is and this is coming from a Heat fan. He's in win now mode. He wants to win right now. He is not the best when it comes to young players, and this is one of the youngest rosters in the NBA. You saw what he did in Minnesota with the Andrew Wigginses and the Cats of the world and all that young roster, and how he hated that those players didn't give full effort all the time. We've talked about this team not giving full effort all the time. I do not think that would be a good combo here, especially because he's 36 years old and he wants to win right now, and we don't know if this team's going to win in the next 3 years until he's 39.
But here's the deal. So this is the time of year, right, that people are literally throwing stuff at the wall. And I mean, but it's probably not fun if you're one of those players that's being mentioned that you could be going here or you could be going there. But it does create interest and it does get people talking. And I mean, there's a part of me too that would be like, well, that'd be kind of cool to have Jimmy Butler for a couple months, right?
I'm cool for it. I just don't know if the roster, or I don't know if the organization would be better for it. I just don't know.
Yeah,
if it's
I
a
don't
good
think
move
they
for
would
the
either.
organization.
Just based on what the names that you've said too. So
yeah, I mean, Harrison Barnes has a very specific role on this team: play good basketball and teach younger kids or younger dudes. Keldon Johnson, I mean, I think we all think it might be. Sorry, I don't know. I got hiccups again. I need to stop drinking water on the show. Keldon Johnson, I think we've all explored the possibility in our heads of him being expendable. I get it. Malachi is one of those guys that I think everyone likes but doesn't love, so I get trading him. What you can't trade is the Atlanta pick. What you can't trade is the Atlanta trade swap in 26. What you can't trade is the Atlanta pick in 27. You can't trade any of those. Well, you can, but you shouldn't. And so I just don't see how Jimmy Butler would fit into this iteration of the Spurs with the timeline that they have. I also, Jimmy's teams that he's thrown out there are Golden State, Phoenix, Dallas, and the Rockets. There's a very clear commonality between those guys, and they're competing for championships, and the Spurs aren't doing that right now.
not as we sit here today, that's true.
They will soon, hopefully. But before we move on from the Spurs there, Bob, any other comments?
I think Jimmy Butler and Chris Paul have had a falling out as well.
Did they?
Really?
Yeah, I was just doing a little reading here. There's been some bad blood between the two of them.
Yeah, so ESPN can. Yeah, I don't have any words. I don't have any words for that.
Dirt.
What?
Nothing.
Plow dirt? Is
No,
that
he said pound dirt.
pound dirt.
Yeah.
Okay. Plow dirt.
Yeah, that too.
all the dirt.
On your off time.
All the dirt.
Yes.
Let's get to some college football here. So, the transfer portal sucks. I'll just say it. I like that players can transfer now, but the way that they do this is really convoluted and messed up, especially when it comes to the kids. Let me just lay out the issue here. So there's a lot of controversy in college football over the transfer portal, player acquisition, timing of the college football offseason, especially when you have teams that are preparing for bowl games, and now the college football playoff that goes until January 20th if you get all the way to the finals. The Penn State backup quarterback Bo Pribula entered the transfer portal in the midst of the playoff run because there's programs out there that are basically putting him between a rock and a hard place. Transfer now and miss out on your playoff run that you've been a part of this entire year, or don't transfer and sit there as a backup again next season because Drew Allar's coming back.
Right, because you have to also, get into school to register to get to classes, too.
They're on the academic calendar. They're not on a football calendar.
Right.
The world doesn't revolve around football, even though I want it to. I spoke with Jeff Traylor about this earlier this week. He did a really good job of kind of laying out what the issue is. And so let's hear from Jeff real quick before we start talking about it.
Well, let's think about what it's doing to kids. Understand this is not the kid's fault. This is the adult's fault. This is leadership. This is a great example when there's a vacuum of leadership, right? And we don't have leadership. Now, I'm not talking about our current president. I mean, obviously, President Baker got handed a rough job when he got handed this thing, and we're trying to figure all this thing out. But let's just talk about like real life situations that are going on. Like currently, guys on our team that have handled it correctly, who walked in my office, they want to play. We recruit them here, they've been beaten out, and they want to go start somewhere, which they can and have the right to. I mean, there are other schools literally telling them right now, if they don't come on their visit, right now, they're not going to take them. So now they're having to decide whether they're going to play in the bowl game for a team they're not going to play for next year, or desert their teammates who are counting on them in the bowl game to go take care of their future. And we're the ones that have done that to the kids. So just that in itself is not right. And I hate it. That kid at Penn State, I can promise you, it probably killed him to not go be the backup for them in that game. And somebody's got to do something. And the problem is what you have is you have a conflict of scheduling here. You've got an academic calendar, but we're not setting the football schedule by the academic calendar. So these kids have got to get in school by January. So that's why the portal is when it is, so those kids can get in and get out and get to their next school, because that's set on the academic calendar. The problem is the rest of us are playing on a bowl schedule and a playoff calendar. So both calendars obviously cannot exist unless we really got to change the football calendar to match the academic calendar, or we have to change the academic calendar to match the football calendar. This is not that complicated.
See, I'm not smart enough to come up with a solution for this. But
I think you are.
But I'm smart enough to realize that there's an issue, just like Jeff and like James Franklin at Penn State and like the SMU coach whose name is escaped, Brett Lashley, who has spoken out about this because he has players transferring from his school that do not want to transfer from his school until their playoff run is done yet. And they play on Saturday in the first round of the first ever expanded college football playoff. And he has players not being able to play in that game or suit up for that game because they are afraid of losing their opportunity to transfer to a new school next year. It's putting kids in a no-win situation. And we're all smart enough to realize that there's an issue, but no one's smart enough to actually come up with a solution. And no, let me rephrase that. No one's smart enough to actually institute a solution. We're all smart. They're smart enough to come up with them because Jeff just had one. He's just not in a position where he can implement that solution. It needs to come from leadership, which has not done that.
Yeah, it's been non-existent at the hierarchy of the NCAA, but it is absolutely insane what's going on right now. I mean, if you take Texas, and let's say they get to the national championship game, I'm sure that's the hope of everybody around here. These kids are playing a 17-game schedule. That's an NFL schedule. You're talking about guys that, bodies who haven't fully developed yet. And, I always go back to my epiphany about how long an NFL schedule is and the difference between playing college football and playing professional football. With Trey Flowers, his rookie year in Seattle, he was in week 3, and it was the Seahawks-Cowboys game. We were up in Seattle. So we shuffled over to the Seattle locker room after the game, and we were waiting for Trey, the rookie, to come out, and he's like the last guy out of the shower, and like he finally comes out, and like, dude, I hope that was a hell of a nice shower you had. He goes, man, you don't get it. He goes, so we just played 4 preseason games. I'm in week 3. This is week 7. I've now played more than half of my college schedule already in a condensed period of time. He goes, and I'm a rookie, so I played in all 4 of those preseason games. He goes, I'm already beat up. He goes, I was back there getting treatment, and I was getting all kinds of things so I can get ready to play the next week. And it's like, you start doing the math on some of this stuff. So what is the answer? Well, first of all, I think the easy one is let's start playing college football games in August.
Earlier, yeah.
Right?
You have to move that up.
Before the classes all start for the rest of the student body, you're playing maybe your non-conference schedule games then, and maybe that's a good way to, integrate kids back into school a little earlier. I don't know what the solution is, but we can't be playing a national title game 20 days into the next year when there's already another semester of college going on. I mean, it's insane.
With how the transfer portal operates right now, there's 2 windows where the transfer portal is open. There's one spring window and there's a winter window, which is the one we're in right now, from December 9th to December 28th. If you do not transfer in that window, you cannot transfer until the spring. Quinn Ewers is a great example. Quinn Ewers, he doesn't know whether he's going to enter the draft. He doesn't know whether he's going to play another year. He doesn't know whether he's going to transfer or not. Actually, maybe he knows. We don't. There is very substantiated reports out there that he is getting a $4 million offer from a Big Ten school. He is not in the transfer portal. He's preparing to try and go on a playoff run right now as the starting quarterback of the 5th-ranked team in the nation. Yet, his representatives are being contacted, we know, that his representatives are being contacted about transferring even though he's not in the portal. How is that okay? How do we expect a kid, Quinn Ewers is obviously one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, and he is transferred from Ohio State to Texas, and he is the lead quarterback, the starting quarterback of the 5th-ranked team in the nation. How do we expect a young man that is not a professional, in theory, to play and go on this playoff run without something else going on in his mind, especially when you have Arch Manning behind him, who is also being scouted and is not in the transfer portal?
Yeah.
Like, it is the Wild West, and there is nobody stopping these coaches and these schools from doing shady crap.
Right. And, they're not going to do it internally, obviously, because they're all doing the same thing, right? They're all talking to guys or talking to agents or whoever it is. I think it's going to come down to this too, Matt. I mean, at some point, you're going to have to make these kids sign contracts.
Well, you're going to have to.
At
You're
least
going to have to do a couple of things. You're going to have to make them sign contracts or limit their transfers. You get 2 free transfers, and then after that, you have to sit out a year. That's what it used to be like, and obviously, it's not like that now. It used to be you have to sit out a year unless there's some circumstances where you don't. But you also have to have a commissioner of this stuff. You have to have somebody in charge of just the transfer portal and player acquisition and contracts and NIL, especially when you're getting into more of what is shaping up to be a salary cap aspect on this when it comes to revenue sharing. You're going to need somebody in control of this and who has the final say and who can actually make rules. Right now, there's no rules. There's no rules for anybody except for a brief transfer window period, and there's still ways around that.
And now they're pouring even more money into the situation, which is going to create even more chaos. I mean, again, I think you have to make kids sign contracts. There has to be something binding that won't allow them to get out. I don't think you can limit kids transferring or have the number just on its face value because, how can you stop free enterprise or a guy, it's the old adage of, well, you don't make a doctor only practice in San Antonio if he wants to go practice in Dallas. I mean, it's, I don't know how you do that legally when it's talking about a player and whether he wants to play at school A or school B.
You just need to make this better for the children, for the kids. Like these are young adults. Ryan Williams is a 17-year-old kid playing for Alabama. You need to make this easier and better for them to get their education, and which we don't even talk about anymore is getting the education. You need to make this easier and better for them to actually play with their team, build the camaraderie on their team, and also create the best situation for themselves. I don't know what the complete and whole answer is, but I know that there is an answer and that the NCAA needs to come up with how to dictate these terms.
Well, I mean,
I know that if you offered me $4 million, I would not be depressed.
I wouldn't be depressed either.
In fact, I think I'd feel a lot better.
Right, and if Quinn Ewers, if that's what his market is in this current Wild West, nobody's begrudging Quinn Ewers his ability to go make money playing football.
Well, Quinn also,
but this is, again, the whole student athlete thing. It's like these are now hired employees by the university. It used to be you play football and you got a free ride and you got a per diem and that was it. And to honor your scholarship, you went out and played the best football that you could. Now it's everybody's getting paid before they even step out on the field, and it's crazy. I don't know, how incentivized are you going to be if somebody cuts you a check for $4 million, or, and I'm not using Quinn Ewers as an example because obviously he's playing hurt right now with that bum ankle. But, I know me, if somebody gave me a $4 million check and I still got to cash the check, whether my ankle was hurting or not, I would probably err on the side of, well, I'm not going to mess up a future contract by going out and playing. And then, so you're not even really living up to the standards of somebody giving you that $4 million to begin with.
Quinn might not be the best example just because he's going to play in the NFL. He's going to get plenty of money, even if he wants to stay in this environment for one more year and go take $40 million from Ohio State or whoever the hell's offering him. But a guy like Bo Perbula, who was a freshman this year for Penn State and has lived to play at Penn State his entire life, lived down the street from Beaver Stadium, is transferring now and is being forced to transfer because of the transfer portal and the window that the transfer portal has. Even though if they win, they don't play again until January 1st or 31st, or the December 31st, which is after the transfer portal closes. He has to basically bail on his team because he's trying to do what's best for himself. That we shouldn't be begrudging kids for doing what's best for themselves, even though like they want to play with their team until their season is done. They're not trying to bail on their team. We're forcing them to bail on their team.
Yep.
And it's a no-win situation for the kids, and I hate that's actually what's going on.
Yeah, it's a no-win for a lot of schools right now,
Yeah.
for sure.
On a separate note, before we get out of here, I love the other ruling that just came down that junior college players can now have 4 years of eligibility, and that their junior college years don't count against their NCAA eligibility. Did you see that yesterday?
I did.
Awesome.
I think that's in the preliminary stages, right? They haven't rubber stamped that yet. But yeah, I mean, again,
awesome.
I don't know that you should be able to limit people if they want to, go a certain route, or because of injury, they've got to play more years, or whatever it is. I mean, the fact that we're even talking about limiting somebody's opportunity, especially at that level, doesn't seem to make a lot of sense.
My question now is, do I now have 2 more years of eligibility?
I think the answer is yes.
See you guys.
You're assuming somebody wants to pay you, Matthew.
I got 2 good plays left. Last thing I wanted to bring up, because we're not here for next week. Did you see this morning that Woody Johnson nixed a Jerry Jeudy trade? Woody Johnson, the owner of the Jets, said no to Joe Douglas trading for Jerry Jeudy because Jerry Jeudy's Madden rating was too low.
Wow.
Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
It's insane. They're a worse run organization than your Browns, Bob. That's horrible. He nixed the trade because Jerry Jeudy's Madden rating was too low. So I guess Jerry Jeudy can thank Russell Wilson for that.
I guess.
I
hadn't heard
the most
that.
insane thing. That's such a definition of what a crap show the Jets are.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, I'm not denying the fact that somebody has put that in ink somewhere.
It
but
was a story from
seems
PFF today.
really
true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely asinine. I mean, Joe Douglas will probably tell you now he's fired from the Jets. He'll probably crap all over Woody Johnson. But anyway, I saw that, and that was the most insane thing I've ever heard. That someone's basing trades on Madden ratings. Anyway, that's all we got for you on the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. They're really interesting discussions when it comes to the college stuff, the Popovich stuff, and the trades for the Spurs. We will not have a podcast next week, not Monday or Thursday. First of all, we can't do it without Chuck, and he won't be here next week.
Yes, you can.
But secondly, it's Christmas and the holidays, so we're going to take the week off, give everyone a little reset. And everyone have a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. We will be back on January 28th. By then, hopefully, the Broncos have already clinched a playoff spot. So, got some big.
My pick to be the AFC Championship game at the beginning of the year.
Genius. Anyway,
Even a broken watch is right twice a day.
I don't know. You might be right once a day. Remember to download, rate, review, and subscribe. Give us a 5-star rating. Tell a friend, tell an enemy. Follow and subscribe to the News 4 and Fox SA YouTube pages as well. It helps us out a lot. So we'll see you back here on December 28th. That says January, but December 28th. Until then, everyone have happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and go Broncos.